What's up, everyone? It's me, your boy Ryan Flowers, aka Clutch Sports Talk, in the house back with another video. And this one comes with great sadness. As a lifelong Dallas Cowboys fan, I should be used to this, but I'm not. Dallas Cowboys fall again in just a very unorganized, disastrous way. There's so many things, so many thoughts, comments that I've read, that I've heard, and that I even conjured up myself. But before I get into the video, man, and before we talk about what's next for the Dallas Cowboys, please go ahead and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. It'll be one of the best things you've done. So let's get into it. All right. So Dallas Cowboys fall in a heartbreaker, I guess, in a weird way, to the San Francisco 49ers yesterday in the divisional round of the NFL NFC divisional round playoffs. Listen, it's over. One thing with the playoffs is that, like, it's one thing in the regular season where you lose a game, you're like, okay, you know what? We got next week. But when you lose in the playoffs and it's not the Super Bowl, it's kind of like, that's it. It's so definite. It's like, boom, your heart's been ripped out of your chest. And now what are you looking at now for your team, especially if you lost? So Dallas fans like myself, you know, I'm not a typical Cowboys fan in that sense where I'm oblivious to the harsh realities of what my team has to offer, right? And that's what this video is all about, realistically, is that I'm not a fanboy. I'm going to keep it real. I'm going to bring some perspective and break down a couple things that are some thoughts that I've had to kind of think about, you know, within the last 24 hours about this team overall. Not the game in itself. I mean, we can kind of talk about that a little bit, but just overall, the future. What's next for Dallas, right? What is next? As you see Dak walking off the field again in another loss. All right, so here's the upside. The defense is much improved. Dan Quinn, you know, stepped in last year, improved it, and he took it to another level. This team was operating at a high level earlier on in the year. They had a little lull there where they couldn't kind of stop a nosebleed. They kind of figured it out. I thought they played really well last night against the San Francisco 49ers, you know, arguably one of the better offenses in the National Football League. You know, they matched up very well with the Niners. You know, towards the end of the game, you can tell that they kind of got tired and they gave up the touchdown and those late first downs that basically iced the game for the Dallas Cowboys, okay? But overall, this team, they can hang their hat on speed. There's a lot of team speed on the defensive side. It starts with Micah Parsons. You know, the secondary is pretty fast. You know, the linebackers, LVE has always been a fast kind of linebacker. They added some other speed with Anthony Barr and some other guys, Javon Curse, you know, guys like that. You know, team speed overall on the defensive side, even the defensive line. You got guys like Odigizua, Neville Gallimore. These are big men, but they can move really fast. But overall, the defense much improved. I wouldn't say they're elite because really there's only one pass rusher that we have, and that's Micah Parsons. And realistically, he isn't an every down defensive lineman or an edge rusher. So that's something that he's going to have to go back and kind of get in the weight room and condition for that, because the way they used him a lot this year, you can tell it took a toll on his body, especially late in the year. And that's when we needed him. Now, he didn't do much yesterday in the game against the Niners, you know, but then again, he was going up against Trent Williams, arguably the best left tackle in the game. But overall, again, the defense is much improved, and I feel good about the defense. I think there's a little kind of tweaks there, but we'll talk about that later on in the video. But overall, the defense is on the plus side or the upside. Okay. Pollard, Lamb, Schultz have emerged, and what I mean by that is that we know that there's no without a doubt, Tony Pollard is RB1 or running back. He's our starting running back. Zeke took a backseat this year. Zeke is not the same guy, and I'll talk about Zeke later on. But Tony Pollard is definitely the guy. Now, I know he broke his fibia, but that he should be back in time for training camp. That's about a 4 to 5 month recovery. So, you know, luckily we got bounced out of the playoffs, so he'll have more time to rehab that. But Pollard is definitely the guy. CeeDee Lamb has also emerged. I was a little discouraged when they did trade Amari Cooper for what they got back for Amari Cooper. That's what kind of made me discouraged. But Lamb stepped up, over 100 receptions, over 1,000 yards this year. He definitely kind of supplanted himself as that number one guy in our offense at the wide receiver position. And I'd be on the lookout for him next year and see if he could keep that going. Early on he had some struggles, some drops, things of that nature. But when he has that ball, he's better than just about any other receiver in the National Football League. That's what he was known for in Oklahoma, and he's kind of brought that into the National Football League from college. Dalton Schultz. He may not be George Kittle or Travis Kelce or Mark Andrews or any one of those other formidable tight ends, but he's getting up there. He's a nice fit for this offense. He's a very vertical wide receiver. Not much to offer in the blocking game or the run scheme, but definitely another guy out there that the quarterback can use in their arsenal when throwing the ball. He came up big in a lot of games. I forgot how many touchdowns he got this year. He had our only touchdown yesterday against the Niners in the playoff game. But Schultz definitely is a guy that defenses have to scheme around for. He's got good size. He can get vertical, and he's pretty shifty, and he's got pretty good hands as well. So those guys overall, Pollard, Lamb, Schultz, have definitely emerged. So as a Cowboys fan, you feel good about that moving forward. Sticking on the offensive side of things, Tyler Smith is not bad at all. A lot of people were kind of scratching their head when they took him. And we didn't know a lot about him really, other than the fact that in college he had a lot of penalties, and it started out like that. Now, he started yesterday's game with 2 penalties. He had a hold and I believe a false start, but for the most part, he held his own. He was going up against Bosa, Nick Bosa, majority of the game, and he held up to that. And I think the future is bright for this young guy. What's so good about Tyler Smith is that he's versatile. He played primarily a lot at tackle this year, but in college he played guard, and they kind of flip-flopped him a couple times with that offensive lineup this year. They moved him inside, they moved him back outside. So that's something that we can build upon moving forward, especially when we talk about the offensive line. Because listen, at the end of the day, if you understand football, one thing you do know is that you need to protect your quarterback and you need to get after the other team's quarterback. And I think there's some guys there on the Dallas Cowboys offensive line that will help us do that next season. So I feel good about that. That's an upside. All right, last one. McCarthy is decent. I've been documented saying that Mike McCarthy probably isn't up to snuff as an NFL head coach, but looking around the landscape of things, he isn't that bad, right? I think I'd rather have Mike McCarthy than Brandon Staley at this point. And that's a shot at the Charger fans, and I think they probably want that too. Now, he's not going to wow you with this great game planning, but he's tough, for the most part. He's got a good head on his shoulders. A lot of the times, the things that caused the Cowboys to lose, I wouldn't say it was on him. And I know that sounds funny because he's the head coach of the team, right? And it ultimately does fall on him. But overall, he's not as bad as we think. If you stack him up next to other relevant coach like Sean Payton, they both have won Super Bowl. They both have similar win-loss records, and Sean Payton's getting a lot of credit, or he's being, I wouldn't say overrated, but he's getting a lot of hype. Why? Because he has this offensive mind. Mike McCarthy, isn't Sean Payton, obviously, from an offensive mind standpoint, but he's an adult, and I think for the most part, we can move forward with him unless something else comes up or someone else that's really, really on the radar that Jerry Jones maybe wants to kick the tires on, but I doubt it. But I'm okay with Mike McCarthy moving forward as being the head coach. Now, there's some other coaching changes that, we'll talk about here next, actually. All right, downside. The downside is that officially now for me, I am out on Dak Prescott. I'm not going to be an apologist for him anymore. The proof is in the pudding now. We've got, 6-7 years of this guy. We have a full body of work. And last night was just another situation where he had an opportunity to kind of change his legacy or redirect his trajectory. Try saying that 3 times, right? And he didn't. I'm not going to say Brock Purdy outplayed him, but he really didn't make a big stamp on the game. The only stamp that he had on the game is that he ultimately let his team down as a quarterback. Now, There are going to be a lot of Dak apologists out there that said, oh, well, we got rid of Amari Cooper and yada, yada, yada. Listen, the guys that are the guys in this league, they make do with whatever they got. Okay? Joe Burrow did not have Jamar Chase for weeks. He has a terrible offensive line. They went into Buffalo yesterday without 3 of their offensive line starters out of the game and got it done. Okay? Patrick Mahomes on one leg still can get it done. Loses Tyreek Hill. No problem. Just throws to somebody else, right? Now, arguably, my opinion is that Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes are the best quarterbacks in the National Football League. And then after that, it's kind of like everybody else. But Dak is not the guy. I'm sorry to say that. And I've been a Dak fan. I've owned multiple of his jerseys. I thought his story is amazing, the way he came into the league. His uphill fight to get where he's at now, it's great from a personal standpoint. But overall, he's not the guy. And Dallas Cowboy fans, for the most part, the ones that still are riding with him, you got to wake up, man. You got to wake up. He's just not the guy. And it proved to me last night that he wasn't the guy. The interceptions, he's making throws that rookie quarterbacks make. And he's doing this in his 7th year. The first interception, he threw late to Gallup. Now, Gallup's got to do a better job to turn himself from a wide receiver to a DB, but the ball was so lately thrown that Gallup was like, I don't even know what to do. And it's deep in there towards the end zone. What are you doing, Dak? What are you doing? And then the second interception, just literally staring down CeeDee Lamb. And some may argue, well, he's staring him down because we have no one else that can get open. Okay, rightfully so. Rightfully so. But you still can't. You can't do that. Chuck the ball away. It was what? 2nd and 2 at that point. Live to fight another down and move on. But literally now, fortunately, the defense held up, and the Niners were only able to get 6 points out of his 2 turnovers last night, right? But that's a game that we needed him to be the guy. And I know that's the number 1 defense in the league. I get all that. But sometimes when you're the guy, you're the 40 mil guy on the team, you got to put the team on your back and you got to go and do that. And that might be the problem with Dak Prescott, is that he got paid and he's trying to do too much. But he's not the guy. He's a game manager at best. And it pains me to say that because I love Dak Prescott. The human story, the human aspect about him, I love. But as a quarterback, I can't do it anymore. I can't do it. All right. Zeke is way past his prime. This guy can't even get, a yard or 2. What happened to him? He got paid. And then that was it. That's the last we heard of Zeke, right? He stopped being a knucklehead, right? But then he stopped being a running back too at the same time. I don't know what the future has in store for him, but he's definitely not the guy, and some changes need to be made, and I'll talk about that in the next slide. All right, ownership is delusional. We all know that. Ownership is delusional, but there's nothing we can do about that, and that's going to be a continuous downside overall, and I won't speak too much on that because I'm going to get to that later. And finally, another downside, Kellen Moore's got to go. He's got to go. Again, he overall consistently not an innovative type of offensive play caller. He's very typical. I get it. Tony Pollard goes out. You really don't have much as far as impact players other than CeeDee Lamb. But you got to find a way, man. You got to find a way. And even throughout all that last night, the Cowboys were still in that game. Because why? The defense kept them in that game. But Kellen Moore, I hope he gets a head coaching job somewhere. And we play that team because that should be a sure win. The whole way he got the offensive coordinating job, a couple years ago, it's still kind of an enigma. But overall, he's got to go. And I think most Cowboy fans would agree to that. Okay. Changes that got to be made. Listen, I thought about this. There's probably some other things. Let me know in the comment section what you guys think. What are the changes that might need to be made? Like real changes. Like not just random stuff, because I know Cowboy Nation, love you guys to death, but some of you guys just be spouting out stuff that they make no sense at all, and you know it. All right, but some realistic changes. You got to restructure Zeke's deal or cut him, because you can't pay him the amount of money that you're paying him, and he's only getting you, what, 1.5 yards per carry. Hell, give me a helmet, give me a check, I can get you 1.5 yards, okay? I may not be able to play the rest of the game, but I'll get you a yard or two there, okay? At my age, at 39, okay? I'll get a yard or two. Believe that. But if he doesn't want to restructure, you got to cut him, because listen, you can go and find your running back in the draft. Running backs are pretty much not a dime a dozen, but if you find the right guy that fits your scheme, you can find one. Most definitely. All right, we got to try to retain Dan Quinn, and you got to tag Tony Pollard. I know Tony Pollard's coming off of this broken fibia now, but I think he'll be good to go, and you got to find a way to keep Dan Quinn. The good thing about trying to keep Dan Quinn, I think we got a good chance, because realistically, if you look at the teams that are remaining in the playoffs, they're all offensive coaches. I think more owners are looking at offensive guys because you're paying a lot of money to these quarterbacks. You got to have someone that can mentor and mature and develop your quarterback. And I think overall, defensive coaches, they can't. They just can't do it. It's outside of their wheelhouse. You look yesterday at the Bengals and what they were able to do versus the Bills. Sean McDermott, defensive guy, he was inept. They had no answer. I think this day and age, a good offense will, for the most part, beat out a good defense. And if you have an elite quarterback, it don't matter how good your defense is. A good offense will always win. Case in point, last night, the Dallas Cowboys. Dak Prescott was not the better quarterback, and they were still in that game with about 3 minutes left. Think about that, okay? So you got to try to find a way to keep Dan Quinn, and you got to franchise tag Pollard, because Pollard's got to be on our team. We have to keep him. Some other changes or improvements, I would say, keep improving the offensive defensive line, right? Talked about Tyler Smith, pretty good. Tyron Smith came back. I know he missed majority of the season. If he can somewhat be healthy and you move him to the right tackle, I think okay, right? But Steele will be back, right? So what happens to that kind of fluctuation? Or do you put Tyron Smith back at left tackle and then you move Tyler Smith back inside? So there's some flexibility there, but I think we got to continue to improve that line. Obviously, Zach Martin is still going to be a rock. He's a stud there on our offensive line, but we still got to kind of improve that defensive line. Now we got some free agents. I know some guys that are going to be up for some contracts. We got to get some beefy guy. I know that sounds weird, but we got to get big up the middle, man. I like guys like Odigizua, but he's a little bit smaller size, but he's quick, right? I think you can use him in tandem with some big guys. I know we had gotten like Jonathan Hankins throughout the year. There was another guy that we had picked up in the free agency pool. I forgot his name too. He got hurt yesterday or last week. But these are some big guys, some run stuffers, because that's the Dallas Cowboys defense weakness is stopping the run, right? We need bigger guys up there. But I think that's doable, whether we can get that in the draft or via free agency. That's one of the changes that I would make. And then another thing, we have to acquire one more receiver and cornerback. CeeDee Lamb stepped up, obviously, right? But Michael Gallup coming off the knee injury, pretty terrible season for him. And after that, there's really no other wide receiver. The James Washington experiment did not work. He broke his foot earlier in training camp. Came back, 1 or 2 games, they ended up cutting him, ended up getting T.Y. Hilton, and the rest is history. But we need more. We need another guy. We need another guy to offset the help. That way, CeeDee Lamb isn't the only guy that we're targeting. Now, Dalton Schultz as a tight end can do only so much, but we need someone that can take the roof off the top of a defense, and we don't have that right now. So that's something that I would want to see, whether it's, again, free agency or within the draft. And finally, another cornerback. Now, Anthony Brown is probably going to be back, but Deron Bland, the rookie out of Fresno State, played tremendous this year. He made a case for himself that he can be that other corner alongside with Trayvon Diggs. They started him in the nickel. Then when some injuries took place, they moved him outside. I thought he did a pretty good job. I thought he did a pretty good job. And so I think that, to add another corner would be nice, just to kind of push guys like Jordan Smith and Anthony Brown a little bit. And remember, Jordan Smith had been out a while too, and he was pretty good inside too as a slot corner. We just need that other guy on the outside, which I think we might have found with Bland, but it's always good to get another corner because that's the league. I mean, everyone's throwing the ball around. So you need as many corners as you can. And I think those are the types of changes that I would make. Again, let me know what you guys think in the comment section. What other realistic changes that you guys can see coming or what you would make. And finally, before I wrap this up, here are some cold, hard facts. Dak is going to be here. Now, all over social media, oh, we need to trade him. We need to cut him. You can't cut him. You can't. And you know why you can't cut him? Because his salary cap would hit us so hard. I think it's like over 55 million plus. And we can't afford that because if we did that, we couldn't do anything. We couldn't sign players. We can't draft people. It would just mess up the whole train, okay? So Dak is here for the foreseeable future. No one's going to trade for this guy, so we're stuck with him, right? Now, you can say, well, he sucks, right? Which for the most part, okay, it is what it is. We don't make the playoffs. We try to get, in a sense, kind of tank and maybe try to get a quarterback in future drafts. But he's going to be here. The most we can do now is try to build around him. And that starts with maybe some more talent, obviously, on the offensive side and better coaching from an offensive coordinator and maybe quarterback coach and maybe some wide receiver coaches. I get it. Our receivers did not have a lot of separation. Probably one of the lowest teams on average with separation from the receivers, And this is the final thing I'll say about Dak. He's got talent. That's not the problem. It's the problem was that he's not consistent enough. Had a great game last week. It's not easy throwing 4 touchdowns in a game, man, in the National Football League. I don't care what anybody says, man. Yet alone youth football, high school, college. It's tough, man. And I know the Bucs weren't a great team. They weren't a great defense. They were like 8-9 and hosted a playoff game just because of how the formatting rules are. But they're still a National Football team, man. Okay? The guy's got talent. The problem is he's not consistent. You don't know what you're getting from him week to week. As a Cowboys fan, and I've been watching him for quite some time, when he drops back and he's holding that ball and he lets it go, my heart always sinks because I don't know what's going to happen. Okay? So he's going to be here, Dallas Cowboys Nation. He's not going anywhere. And that's a fact. We're not trading him. He's not getting cut. Nobody wants him anyway. All right? We're not going to go get Lamar Jackson. Tom Brady is not coming. We're not going to trade for Aaron Rodgers. There's no other option out there at this point. There really isn't. So just get over it. We're stuck with him. We're just stuck with him. Another cold hard fact, Jerry Jones is still the owner and is going to be the owner until, his demise, until he perishes. And that still doesn't relinquish his hold because guess what? His son is no better either. Steven is just as bad, right? So the Jones family will still continue to run this football team and honestly run it into the ground, right? Now, who cares that they're the most valued franchise? I don't even care about that anymore, man. Can we win? Can we win? I read a stat this morning that Jalen Hurts was not even born the last time the Dallas Cowboys made an NFC Conference Championship game. Was not even born. So now he was born, lived his life, went to high school, college, and now is playing in an NFC Conference Championship game, and the Dallas Cowboys haven't even sniffed that. I was 10 the last time they won or even made an NFC Championship game. It's a long time. It's a long time. And part of that is because of Jerry Jones. He hypes us up. He gets things going. Oh, look, this year, OBJ. Oh, yeah, we're talking to him. They had no real plan to sign him. Okay, that's all talk. It's all guff. And we hear that from him every season about something. We're always in the limelight, and he does nothing. The guys that we should go get, we don't get. And the guys that nobody really wants to get, we go and get. And that's the problem with Dallas Cowboys and Jerry Jones. Is that the guy is just senile. I mean, end of the day, he's senile and delusional. And finally, the last whole cold hard fact is that, listen, other NFC teams are in a better position than us to win. Obviously, we're still going to have to compete against the Eagles. They're not going anywhere. You know, you still got a young quarterback under contract that you're not paying much. The Niners, they might have found something with Brock Purdy, right? They're not paying him anything. The Vikings, they might figure it out, right? They got some talent. Their defense needs to get better. But again, they got a problem with the quarterback. Packers, they might have something. Maybe Jordan Love is good or decent enough. If they figure out what they're doing offensively, their defense is going to be good, and they're going to have still one of the better offensive lines in the National Football League. And you have a two-headed monster with Dylan and Aaron Jones back there running the football. You know, okay? So, you know, there are going to be some other teams out there, but just the fact that you're still going to have to compete with the Eagles who aren't going anywhere, who knows what the Giants are going to do? You know, the Giants are still out there. What are they going to do at quarterback? Brian Daboll seemed like he knows what he's doing over there offensively. So they just need to add some firepower. But we'll see. We'll definitely see. But overall, that's all I got. Love it, like it, or leave it. Make sure you drop a comment. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, man. And be on the lookout for everything else that I drop Clutch Sports Talk related. Other than that, Dallas Cowboys, what the hell are we going to do next? But we'll have to wait and see. That's all I got. Until next time, this is Clutch Sports Talk with me, Ryan Flowers. Never settle till the work is done. We'll see you guys later. Peace.